Hi everyone, and welcome to this video by Broken Millennials. And today the topic of our video will be a little bit different from the stuff that we did before. Not that we did a lot of stuff before, but still it's a change, and hopefully it's a change for good. And today's topic would be more serious, and it's a very discussed topic lately since the beginning of the lockdown. And mainly, we're going to talk about domestic violence and sexual assault, and in general, the issues that have come up recently and that need to be addressed, as we think more in order to maybe do something about it. Because as we know, raising awareness is one of the key factors in eliminating some serious problems on any level, basically. So yes, should we start with saying that we've done an interview with an expert when it comes to domestic violence, and it's uploaded to our podcast series that you can find in the link below. And there you can find more information about the specifics of work with men who are acting as aggressors in domestic violence. And it's very educational to hear someone who is actually qualified to talk about this speak about the gender inequalities and, of course, domestic violence and the legal procedures that go with it in different parts of the world. So go check it out if you want to learn more. And here, I guess we'll be talking more about our personal views. Hopefully none of you guys have faced this problem, but it's very important to remember that domestic violence and, in general, sexual abuse and harassment by men towards women and sometimes men happens everywhere and all the time. And it could be happening to your neighbor, to your closest friends, and they might not even speak out about this, which is very common. And today we'll try to maybe talk more about the reasons why that happens, and in general, just kind of tune you in with why we decided to talk about this in the first place. So yes, stay tuned if you'd like to learn more.
Yeah, so I think because we come from more or less similar background in terms of the countries that we grew up in, I guess we have similar perception on how the issues with the domestic violence are solved in our countries. I think it's the same in Ukraine, but in Belarus as well as in Russia, there are no specific definitions of what is domestic violence in the constitution of our countries. There is no clear mechanism of how to deal with domestic violence when it happens. And I think it is very important for such a definition to exist for many reasons. First of all, because when we talk about domestic violence, there is not we're not only talking about physical abuse, but we also talk about economic, psychological, and sexual. So in this sense, it is essential to understand that we are not only talking about the physical aspects, we talk about many things. And because there is no clear definition of what domestic violence is, there are many issues with that, with protection of the victims, with rehabilitation centers, with psychological help, with all of those things. And because no one, I wouldn't say no one cares, but I think we have such kind of mentality when people believe that this is only the issues that concerns them, that just they shouldn't speak out about it, they shouldn't reach for help, and they just have to deal with it. Also, I think a part of our mentality that men are raised to be strong. They are raised to they're raised not to demonstrate emotions, and the physical strength is genuinely embraced in our mentality. So I think it's a part of the issue, and that's why we decided to talk about that.
Yes, and I think when it comes to different social issues that are discussed by different people, I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of generalize here and make a suggestion and let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that when someone starts, like us, starts to talk about some issues, maybe in a way they have, this idea has to come from somewhere, and I think that even those people who can say that, oh, we've been victims of domestic abuse, for example, or domestic violence, a lot of people, and the statistical data also shows that a lot of women have suffered from some kind of sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And I think we can also say here about cultural differences when you travel from country to country, and it's visible how the attitude towards such issues is different, and how the gender relations are different. And I think here it would be interesting to kind of compare the Western Western family structure to the one of Asia, for example. If we take not Asia, but the Caucasian region where we lived for 2 years and could kind of see some of the things there. So since we both come from Eastern Europe, and both of our families are, I would say, pretty Western. I mean, yeah, and
yeah, we come from families that traveled the world, that will just, I don't know, they have seen different cultures. They were also always interested in different cultures. So yes, in this sense, we are not a typical Eastern European. We didn't grow up in typical Eastern European families.
And that's why I feel like I can make that distinction. When we talk about a Western family, I'm sure I don't have to go into deep details because a lot of people know what it is. It means they strive for equality. They want to make each member of the family, they want to make their voices equally important in the process of decision making, and they want to consider everyone, at least if they, I mean, not every, I don't think there is a perfect family, but even the ones who are very imperfect, at least a lot of them in the Western world strive to reach that equality. However, in the countries where the dominance of conservatism is a little more visible, such as Georgia, where we spent some time, it's very different. With young people, I don't think it's that different, because as the globalization kind of gets to the more distant corners of the earth, into the countries that we would think it would never reach, still there are a lot of families in Georgia that live by these traditional rules, and by which I mean the patriarchy, the very strong patriarchy in regard to the father being the head of the family, and the woman, his wife, would be in the kitchen. And if you would go to rural Georgia, to the countryside, to those areas, you would not see a woman. If you just go as a guest, you would see a woman probably bringing out food from the kitchen, but you would rarely see her sitting by the table with the guests and with the father, of if they have children, with her husband, I mean. And this is a very, I mean, if we go deep into gender relations. This is very visible when you move just a little bit eastern from Europe, really, or from where we are. And it's just, yeah, luckily we didn't really have to deal with those kinds of things. I guess we were more of witnesses, and but still it's very visible, especially not so much in the city, in the capital, but as you go to the villages, it's out there. It's out there. Yeah. And I think I would also add, I would make a little confession myself when it comes to gender relations. Eva knows, and we've had this conversation a long time ago, over and over again, but from different standpoints. When we came to Georgia 2 years ago, I was not given it much thought, this issue in general. I was always interested in social issues and in trying to find solutions to them, but I've never really given much thought to the feminist movement. And I would say, yeah, that's right. I mean, all of my favorite writers and directors are male, and I guess that's it. I guess that's what it is. There should be a reason for it, right? Maybe I don't know.
I remember how we argued that you don't watch movies of female directors, or you don't read books of female authors, and it was really interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, not intentionally, but as I look at it, it just appears that way. And I was like, well, I guess there's a reason for that. Maybe men really are better at writing books and making films. And then, I mean, it's just a very we've met a lot of people who have this view still. Luckily, I changed it, and I didn't force myself to do it. It just came very naturally. Yes, because as you move along with your life and as you try to reach something, with age and with opportunities that come with different ages, it kind of, you can begin to see why there is a problem with that,
I also think that in our mindset, there is always an option that, well, I can get married and get away with that, and that there is, in a sense, always an option to I guess to just get married and live a life with children, be independent on the husband, on his income, and it's perfectly fine. And it's, in a sense, it is the way many people live, I guess, even now. And I just feel like when we are growing up, there is always this option, and there is something that we can kind of rely on, that, well, wait, if I'm not gonna be successful in the things that I'm doing, I can always get married.
Yeah, and I'm with kind of pleasure, I would say. We had a discussion recently with my family that nowadays, when we see so many women get more access to education, get better degrees, get better at developing something that they want to become in themselves, and with that, the amount of opportunities for women is getting bigger, and we can see the examples of women who are maybe in a relationship and who are maybe in their late 20s or early 30s or even older, who are in relationships, who are not married, but who don't have to get married. Because, I mean, why get married? Why rush? Why do something just because someone dictates you to do so, if you can take time to develop your own strengths in some fields? And this is something that I like to see in the world, that women are getting more opportunities, but still, I would say that as a girl grows up and as she goes to discover the world and see what opportunities are out there, and maybe she's not yet even thinking about her sexuality, she's not even thinking about her her appearance that she makes when she's around men. There comes a time when some men around you, around someone who has not yet become something that we would consider significant in the society, has not taken yet this important role. When that girl comes out to look for the opportunities, it's tragic how often she is viewed as a sexual object. And I'm not only talking theoretically, and I've had those situations, and you can't always recognize them. And it's really heartbreaking to realize that what you think you have to offer, what you actually have to offer, is not really viewed by some people as something valuable, and instead they just look at you as fresh meat. And this is truly, truly heartbreaking, and this is something that, domestic violence, misrepresentation of girls and women in the society, and many other sides of this issue that comprise the gender inequality. It's something that we can talk about endlessly, and there are so many examples that we can bring up from personal experience or from books, and I'm sure that you guys also are familiar with many of them. And yeah, this is the reason why there should be more conversation about this, and there should be more awareness brought to it.
Yeah, when you mentioned marriage, it's also interesting that still, at least in our part of the world, people will look at you very strangely if you're not married before 30. For whatever reason, I can't understand why there is this specific number when you should get married, when you don't have children by this age, when and you don't have a partner, even when you have multiple partners. It's even out of question. The people still think that the idea of, I don't know, meeting your future husband at school and being the only people for each other, never sleeping with anyone else, and those qualities are really praised in girls, that, well, you have to find this one person and just stick to him for the rest of your life. Go through all the hardships, all the difficult things. And by hardships, we also talk sometimes about domestic violence, because there is a Russian saying that it's better to have a bad man around you, but it will be your man.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes.
If he beats, then he loves.
Yeah, if he beats, then he loves. Better to have a bad one than no one. So, yes, I think just because still women are scared to be alone, they don't feel that they are sufficient or enough to be happy, to live a happy life. They need a husband, they need children, they need all of those things to and many people think that this is their duty in life in general. Of course, we don't want to shame people who actually think that the children and marriage is their duty in life. It's perfectly fine, but it's not fine that so many girls are growing up with this mindset. And this is something that is praised in the culture. This is something that is inexplicitly taught at school, I guess. This is, yeah, the literature that we read at school. I don't know, just the examples that we study, I guess. This is what people think is a perfect life, in a sense. So in our part of the world is still a very big issue. It's a very big cultural issue.
Yes, and yeah, especially in like in smaller societies, if even in a big city, if there's a smaller community, and if it's, I mean, I'm talking about pretty conventional communities, like, I don't know, college, school, maybe workplace, those types of communities tied by one interest. I'm not talking about religious communities, that's a whole different subject, but in those communities and even in families, again, what you said before, about girls and women being viewed as somewhat, it's not even strange, as perverted, if they you know, if a woman by 30, if she doesn't have a husband, she would be often viewed as like, oh, there must be something wrong with her then, or she must have screwed someone's brain, so he left her and she deserves that. And if she has multiple partners, God forbid, then she's viewed as a slut for sure. And you know, if we just juxtapose that to the way men are viewed, boys are viewed, teenage boys, for example, when they start exploring relationships, and not only monogamous relationships, and when they enter various relationships at a time, sometimes, you know, boys can be like that, just like girls also. Boys are viewed as, well, they might get called boys sometimes, but jokingly, mostly they would be viewed as, oh, well, if he has so many partners, then he's got something to offer to those girls.
He has experience.
Yes, he's got experience. He is good with girls, and if a girl,
because it's bad, it's bad for a boy to not have experience, right? But for girl, no.
No, not
girl
at all.
Shouldn't have no experience, of course.
Yeah, and no one talks, you know, about. This is very, very touchy subject, but you know, no one would call a guy who's had sex with a girl before and he's doing it again. No one would refer to him as, I don't know, used secondhand. But that kind of saying, it could be applied to a girl because of some physical, you know, there's no coming back, I guess. Although there is, you know. But anyway, this is very, very kind of personal, and I'm sure that many people don't give it much thought, because what's the use if this problem is so global and it's on all the levels of our society that it seems impossible to change the status quo. But those people who do give it a thought, it's very, very tragic, and it's set on very deep levels of consciousness and subconsciousness. And that's why in the interview, which is in the podcast, we're talking about the importance of education and the importance of delivering the right message. Right, yes, this is subjective right, but I mean, I would call this the right message about gender roles, and about, you know, you're allowed to be whoever you like as long as you're not violent towards other people. You have a right to express yourself. And if you give a kid that guidance, that directions, that you're free to express yourself as long as you're not hurting others. And these are, you know, the red flags that you might see in the future relationships with people, no matter who they are to you, boyfriend, girlfriend, or friend, or family member. these are the red flags that you should watch out for. Then, if you work that out on various levels and in various educational institutions with different ages, this could be the key to solving the problem, or maybe coming closer to solving it. And that's why, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, I think it's a good introduction.
Yeah,
if
everything goes by the initial plan, which, planning nowadays not so strong, but if everything goes by the initial intention, I would say, we will make more videos on that matter, or at least covering some social issues, and we'll conduct more interviews to engage those people who are professionals in their field to share their views, opinions, and experiences with us and with you guys. So please, we encourage you to follow the link below to our podcast, to listen to. If you've reached that far, I think it's safe to assume that you will be pretty interested in learning more about this. So if you do, yes, our podcast will tell you a little bit more about that. And yes, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.